Well, here we are, another episode of Kody Plain and Simple. So, technically, as long as I get this in and uploaded before midnight, then I kept my word. But, yeah, okay, so this is gonna be really short. It's gonna be just filling in the blanks between the end of 2019, the world basically halfway coming to an end in 2020, up to where I am now. But really, the super short explanation of my hiatus is because around the end of 2019, my health started taking a nosedive, um, very drastically. And by the time the start of 2020 rolled around, the last two times I drove was to my birthday party, um, and then I wound up having a doctor's appointment. I want to say that was about in March, and thank God I had a good friend with me. Um, I had learned at that point, almost always for the past couple of years, whenever I drive somewhere, I got rules for it, which is like, if I'm going out to get something to eat nearby, fine, no problem, go out, grab it, come back home. If I'm going to visit somebody or do something like an activity, either I took somebody with me, I would go pick them up or meet them, or they would be waiting for me at the other end of where I had to go. Okay, fine. But it got to the point where the last time I tried to make that doctor's appointment, my weakness was just crippling. And it was a combination of weakness and inability to breathe. Plus, we were on a hill trying to manage a wheelchair, and I just couldn't do it. I mean, with Pompe disease, fatigue kind of goes with the territory, but this was unusual, like highly unusual for me. So much to the point that I just, by the grace of God, drove us to the hospital because I didn't even have enough strength to get out of the car to switch and let her drive. So the whole way, I'm just sitting up here mumbling prayers like, okay, I hope I make it to the hospital, which fortunately wasn't that far away. This was in March of 2020, and it was bad enough to where they thought I was only going to live for another 7 to 10 days. So they sent me home on home hospice. And truthfully, what I just told you, um, technically, I wasn't even supposed to know that I was given that kind of time limit. But hey, you see what day it is, and I'm still talking to you a year later. So God bless doctors, but they don't have the final word. Anyway, but in between then and now, I have gone from last year, aside from it being what it was for everybody in this whole COVID thing, um, I was I went into a depression the likes of which I had never seen or felt before, which from then until now, the way that my depression was manifesting itself somewhat was typical, but not exactly. It wasn't always sadness. In me, it came out in forms of aggression. I could hear myself and my thoughts, and I was fully aware of them. And I was like, wait a minute, that's not you. That's not the kind of person you are at your core. And that's an added benefit of knowing who you are. So when other thoughts creep into your head, you know which ones are you and which ones are not you. And there was a whole lot of not me going on. After I was put on hospice, my initial team was absolutely amazing because in hospice, I'm just going to go ahead and say it, and some people will disagree or whatever. But everything from how your insurance changes, what you do and don't have access to. On hospice, they typically are just waiting for you to die. They do not do anything to help you get better. They don't, at least in my situation, okay, I won't speak to everybody, but in my experience, they don't do anything to help you get better. They'll give you meds that you should have had access to before now, but all of a sudden it's like medications is like a candy shop. You can go in and ask for pretty much whatever you want, and you'll get it 9 times out of 10. Um, with me, I've never even liked to use medication. Never been a big fan of it if I could help it. I went from one blood pressure pill about 10 years ago, I guess, and within the last 2, 3 years, maybe even a little longer than that. Um, yeah, let's just say it's a lot more. Somewhere around, jeez, 7, 8 pills I think I take now, and that's not even counting my weekly infusions. So yeah, price of life, right? But in the middle of that depression, what then 2020 having to deal with Corona, and then the visitors that I once could have started slowing up until it stopped because as much as I believe in God, as my mom would say, God also gives you a brain to think with. And it just wasn't wise to keep having company over, especially with some of the jobs that they had where they could be at risk themselves. And they didn't even want to risk their kids. And I'm thankful for those who did come over before it really got bad. I'm beyond thankful. Got to see friends I hadn't seen in years. So that's a positive thing. Um, but one thing I will say is this, and I think I'm going to close on this note because there is a lot to talk about, and I'll go over those in future videos. But for people to say to somebody that already had a pre-existing medical condition, whether it's a form of muscular dystrophy, muscular sclerosis, cancer, all these different conditions that people may have already had. Stop telling them that now that COVID is a thing, that the field is leveled or they're going through the same thing. No, you're not. Because as horrible as COVID is, and I absolutely sympathize because I know people that have passed from it. So obviously it's no joke or anything, but it's not the same because you could take somebody who, let's say, was younger and perfectly healthy for the most part, they could survive it. They'll make it past some of the lingering or residual effects. But if I were to catch it, that's basically a death sentence short of a miracle. So now not only would I have to deal with COVID, I would have to deal with whatever I had going on already. So yeah, just stop with the whole it's all the same now, because it's not. It is absolutely not. Anyway, um, the next episode gonna be pretty interesting. Um, all I'm gonna do is give you this warning. If your close family, and particularly my mother, and maybe a couple of my cousins, yeah, I'm gonna tell you to miss next episode. And if I'm telling you that, I'll let you figure out what it has to do with. Anyway, thanks for listening. Talk to you later.